Good day everyone, I'm Georgie Candas and I will be discussing the cultural traits. First, let us define what is cultural traits. It is a characteristic of human actions that acquired people socially and transmitted via various modes of communication. Cultural traits are things that allow for a part of one culture to be transmitted to another. If they combine with other cultural traits, they may change. These are the examples of cultural traits. First is hospitable, friendly and welcoming to strangers and guests. Next is strong work ethic, upholding the values and goals of the company by performing your job to the best of your ability. Next is love and caring. Caring people are polite, considerate, generous, affectionate, patient, understanding, loving, and forgiving. Those are the examples of culture traits of Filipinos. Let us proceed to cultural complex. Cultural complex is a distinctive pattern of activities, beliefs, rites, and traditions associated with one central feature of life in a particular culture. An example is the clusters of activities, ceremonies, songs, and stories associated with the hunting and use of the buffalo by Native American peoples. These are the examples of cultural complex. First is religious complex. It is a theory which posits the religion intersects with inequality, especially class, race, and ethnicity and gender. Next is business behavior complex. It is a complex business model addresses a broader, more complex values proposition through one or more products or services or a combination of it. That's all for today. Thank you.
Good morning everyone, I am Justin Makidang and I'm going to tackle about the history and stories. But before we go on to that, let us first define what is a school. A school is an educational institution designed to provide learning spaces and learning environments for the teaching of students under the direction of the teachers. Most countries have systems of formal education, which is sometimes compulsory. In these systems, the students progress through a series of school. The word school is derived from the Greek word skoli, which means leisure. Let us now move on to the brief story of school. Have you ever wondered why school was developed? We're sure that's a question that every student asks from time to time, especially on tough test days. First is education dates back to the very first human to ever inhabit the earth. Why? In order to survive. Every generation has found it necessary to have an accumulated knowledge, skills, values, as well as traditions in the next generation. But how can they do this? Through education. Each subsequent generation must be taught these things. Next is the earliest human beings didn't need school to pass along information. They educated the youngsters on an individual basis within the family unit. Over time, however, the population grew and the societies were formed. Rather than every family being individually responsible for education, people soon figured out that it would be easier and more efficient to have a small group of adults teach a larger group of children. In this way, the concept of school was born. Ancient schools weren't like the schools we know today. The earliest schools often focused more on the teaching skills and passing along religious values, rather than teaching specific subject areas like is common today. Let us now move on to the history of education. The first known school was approximately 2000 BC. Cuneiform mathematics textbook from this time period had been discovered. This suggests that some form of schooling may have existed in the Sumer during that time. Formal schools are also known to have existed in China during this time period. The next one is the Age of Pericles, 455 BC to 431 BC. Most Greek states have adopted a formal education system. Sparta used the educational system to train their children for effective military support. Athens, however, stressed more intellectual and aesthetic lessons. Moving on to the development of Roman schools, 50 BC to 200 AD. The Romans were heavily influenced by the Greek education system. Many children, after learning to read and write, attended the school to study Latin literature, history, math, music, and dialectics. Uh, these Latin schools are very similar to the secondary education in the 20th century. The Dark Ages, 400 to 1000. During this period, the common people were politically and religiously oppressed, which stunted the ability for the population to grow and innovate intellectually, as the Greeks and Romans previously had. Certain people in the church and in wealthy families were able to receive education and make small advances. Next is Thomas Aquinas, 1225 to 1274. During the medieval times, most people were taught by the Catholic priests, many of whom were corrupt. Though his works as a theologian, Thomas Aquinas helped to change the church's view on how the commoners should learn and grow in knowledge. Thomas Aquinas also paved the way for the creation of medieval universities. Moving on to the Renaissance, approximately 1350 to 17th century. The Renaissance, which started in Italy, was the rebirth of people's thirst for for new knowledge. The Renaissance slowly spread throughout the Europe, which led to the revival of classical learning known as humanism. Next is the earliest American colleges established, approximately 1630 to approximately 1640. The first colonial college, Harvard, was established in 1636 to prepare the ministers. A few years later, other schools such as Yale, Princeton, Dartmouth, and Brown are also established. Next we have is John Locke, 1632 to 1704. During 1678, he wrote an essay called Concerning Human Understanding. In this essay, he discusses his belief that at birth our minds are a blank slate, and that we gain knowledge through experience. His views of the mind and how people learn were greatly influenced in the U.S. education system. American Academy, 1751. In 1751, Benjamin Franklin founded the American Academy, an educational institution. Its curriculum was both classical and modern, uh, which included lessons in history, geography, navigation, surveying, and languages. This went on to become the University of Pennsylvania. In 1801 was the invention of blackboard. James Pillian invented the blackboard when he hung a large slate in the classroom wall. The blackboard is a course management system that allows you to provide content to students in a central location, communicate with students quickly, and provide grades in an electronic format to students. The compulsory education in 1852. Massachusetts passed a law making education mandatory. This spread throughout the country, and the final state to adopt it was Mississippi in 1917. Next we have is the invention of typewriter in 1867. Christopher Sholes invented the modern typewriter. This was later manufactured by E. Redmington and Sons in 1873. In 1876 was the Dewey Decimal System. In 1873, the Dewey Decimal System was developed by Melville Dewey, was patented and published. This became the world's most used library organization and classification system. Next is high school curriculum in 1892. A standardized high school curriculum was formed by the National Education Association to establish a secondary school curriculum. The Committee of 10 recommended curriculum that was college-oriented, which laid the foundation of high schools today. The pencils and papers in the 19th century. Mass-produced pencils and papers are starting to become more accessible, which eventually replaced the school slate and made writing more easier. In 1901 was the first community college. In 1901, Joliet Junior College in Joliet, Illinois opened and became the first community college in America. Next we have is SAT in 1926. The Scholastic Aptitude Test SAT was first administered in 1926. The SAT was owned, published, and developed by the College Board, a non-profit organization in the United States. The test was developed to assess a student's readiness for college. Next is IQ testing in 1939. In 1939, David Wechsler developed the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. This introduced the deviation IQ, which calculates scores based on how far from the average subject score to another subject's score is. And IQ means intelligence quotient. Next is ACT in 1959. In November of 1959, Everest Franklin Linguist administered the first ACT test as direct competition to the SAT. The ACT has mutually consisted of different tests, which includes English, math, reading, and science reasoning. The first computer used in school was in 1959. Computers were Computers were first used in New York elementary schools to teach arithmetic. This was the beginning of a major technological revolution for in education. Next we have is handheld calculator in 1970. Serving as the predecessor to the TI-83, the first calculator was originally concerning to teachers, as they feared it would undermine students' learning. Next is the whiteboard in 1990. Although the inventor of the whiteboard has been heavily debated, they first started to gain popularity in the 90s, partly due to the students having allergic reactions to the chalkboard dust. Higher Education Act in 1998. This act was amended and reauthorized and required institutions and states to produce report cards about the teacher education performance. Lastly is the Common Core in 2009. The Common Core State Standards Initiatives is launched, which details what K-12 students should know at the end of the year. Before I end this report, I would like to say a quote about education. According to Malcolm X, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Good day, classmates, especially to our professor, Dr. Patarata. So, my report is all about school rituals, traditions, and ceremonies. So, let me first define school rituals. So, school rituals are a very powerful means to both create and perpetuate school culture. So, they help distinguish our community from others and imprint students for years to come. So, school leaders are well served to shape rituals that not only energize students and faculty, but they also reinforce our best selves or the best versions of the students. And aside from that, class rituals are very different because they create community. And when we use or when we have effective rituals, it builds an inclusivity to the culture and safety and belongings of the students and also giving them identity. The first group meeting of the day is a very good time for rituals that promote each child's self-esteem and feeling of belongings. And the examples are hugging a circle neighbor hello. So we have to promote a ritual for students to get to know each other, especially to their classmates. To sing songs that include the children's names so that they can know each other better. Selecting a special classroom helper job for each child so that they could know their responsibilities as students, and showing and discussing something that the child has made. So these things that I've mentioned are very important rituals in building the bond and the socialization between the students so that they can know each other better and also they can have a sense of responsibility inside the classroom. As what I've said earlier, knowing and letting the students know their responsibilities is a very important task. So, another ritual that is very important is for us to assign responsibilities to the students. So, This means that all of them need to have several tasks by the end of the week, like assignments, homeworks, projects that we can give them. And they should all feel very happy and proud about it, because by assigning roles and responsibilities or tasks that are given to them in the classroom, we give them an added sense of ownership or responsibility, and it can also increase their creativity. Another specific example of a school ritual is that when students cannot leave class to eat or to go to the canteen, especially if it's not yet the time to have lunch break or recess. And the messages that these rituals is sending is to plan ahead and always be prepared for class. And the underlying values of this type of ritual is that we students should have respect for class time, and the outcome when students learn from this kind of ritual is that they learn to become much more responsible in maintaining their time and respecting their teachers, and especially the time in their classroom. So another thing that we should also remember about school rituals is that these are the procedures or routines that are infused with deeper meaning. So they help make our common experiences uncommon events, especially in school, because every school has hundreds of routines, from the taking of attendance in the morning to the exiting procedures used in the afternoon. But when these routine events connect were connected to a school's missions and values, they summon spirit and they also reinforce cultural ties. Another school ritual that is very common and should be practiced not only in the classroom but also outside of the classroom are the greetings or the good mornings. So the examples of greetings are hello, you look so friendly today. Hello, Karen, good to see you. Hey there, Thomas, are you all ready to play? So through those morning rituals or through those greeting rituals, we can communicate with them, or we can imply to them that communication is a key to building friendship and bond with someone. It means that we are inclusive of the people around us, we value and include them, and it is also considered good manners to greet each person by name and with respect. And also, it promotes good manners because we should teach students on how to respect elders, and not only elders but the people around them, so that the people around them could feel comfortable. So let me tell you all about the importance of rituals not only in the school but also in the classroom. It is very important because including a variety of rituals and routines in our program or in our lesson can help make children feel safe, secure, and ready to learn. And one of the most important features of rituals is that they do not only mark time, they create time, and they also give development when it comes to social phases, ritual structures, and social worlds on how children should understand time, relationship, and change. So let us now move on to the second part of my report, which is all about school traditions. So school traditions are very special and unique to each and every one. And the goal of school traditions is to build a community among students and staff. So traditions in general and in schools are events that have a special history and meaning that occur in a year in and a year out. So In schools, traditions are a part of the history, and they are part of the school culture and symbolizes it, so that we can have certain events to celebrate, and they carry meaning. Each celebrations and traditions create meaning, because when people, or when students, or when a certain school have traditions that they value and appreciate, it gives them a foundation to weather all the challenges, difficulties, and change. So that is the importance of having school traditions. So the traditions in schools that we are very much familiar about are the morning greetings, the hallway greetings, which makes the morning transition safe and pleasant. The Rise and Shine morning assembly that we used to do every morning. I still remember when I was in elementary. And the morning sing, when we have the assembly early morning, and we sing Lupang Hinirang, and we recite the Panatang Makabayan, and we also sing the Awit ng Maynila. And those are the traditions that examples of traditions that we are familiar about. So now let us move on to the school ceremonies. So school ceremonies are the culmination of education for the high school student. The commencement ceremony, graduation, it's also a major event and transition point for students, parents, and teachers. And it is a time for students, parents, and teachers to celebrate their hard work and accomplishments. So here are some of the ceremonies that we know about. These are the Buwan ng Wika, which is the National Language Month, the Nutrition Month, which celebrates the importance of having a healthy body and sound mind, the Student Council elections, and the Book Week celebration every November. In some schools, they actually have Holy Catholic Mass celebrations, Teachers' Day, educational trips, and field day. So those are just some of the examples of some of the celebrations and the ceremonies that the schools are always having. Knowing all about the school rituals and being familiar all about it is very important, because ceremonies are very complex, and they are culturally sanctioned in a way that it means that the school celebrates success and communicates its values, recognizes special contributions of staffs and also the students. And successful ceremonies are designed carefully and arranged to communicate values, celebrate core accomplishments, and build a tight sense of community around the school.
Good day, everyone. I am Lawrence Beltrano, and today I will be discussing about the symbols. First, let us define what is symbols. Symbols are images that represent words or concepts and help pupils visualize the meanings of words. Sometimes it is hard to remember the meaning of new and difficult vocabulary, and with symbols, the pupil can be sure they are using the right word. They support pupils at many different levels. The simplest levels, symbols are used to enable communication and choice by pointing to the one you want, by signposting the environment, such as by labeling rooms, cupboards, and drawers. The pupils is given help to be more independent. Symbol used to support vocabulary can help with learning new words and can separate understanding of concepts from decoding spelling. Most importantly, they can help pupils by increasing their independence and building their self-esteem. The following gives more specific detail on the use of symbols. This includes helps to signpost the environment, aid communication and participation, understand routines and systems, support new and unknown vocabulary, support teaching of concepts, access the curriculum through differentiated materials, enable pupils to explain their understanding of a concept or ideas, support writing and recording, and lastly, improve the behavior of motivation and engagement. Signposting the school environment makes pupils and visitors feel safe and more comfortable. A communication-friendly environment is one where everyone feels secure enough to listen, understand, and express themselves. Learners can develop their social, emotional, and academic potential by the reduction and removal of barriers to communication. There is an accessible learning environment for everyone. Symbols can be used to label resources and equipment to show who works where and provide visual aids to signpost people around the school. Making symbols part of the environment helps students who need extra support and increases their feelings of inclusion. Schools that use symbols as a natural part of environment have found that many more people noticed signs and there have been no negative comments from parents. Aiding communication and participation. Pupils with communication difficulties use symbols to participate. The symbols help staff understand the pupil needs and anxieties. These communication cards were made for a specific child to help him express needs and views. Activity cards for choosing time support children's understanding of the choices available to them. Reminders and advice cards increase the independence. A child can put a bookmark in an obvious place to request help without having to ask out loud. Demographic, technological, and economic forces are transforming societal institutions and the way in which people interact within them. Major challenges of 21st century education include adjusting to these shifts and instructing schools to improve human interaction and learning. One important way to shape school is through their cultural symbols. What is cultural symbols? Schools are social organizations comprised of people with a set of shared beliefs, complex rituals, and relationships, and collective verbal behaviors. Symbols are key in understanding these shared meanings, values, and behaviors because they are expressions of how people interact and conduct business from day to day. A school culture can be defined simply as the way things are done around here. According to Deal and Kennedy in 1982. And these things are done through such symbols as stories, heroes and heroines, myths and metaphors, rituals and ceremonies, facility decor, and special language of jargon.
Good day everyone, my name is Feren Arcangel and I am here to discuss what is culture can be. So first, culture can be comfortable. Culture can be states that comfortable conditions and nourishes man's social and professional efficiency. For example, a foreigner came to the Philippines to experience our culture. As we all know, Filipinos are one of the welcoming person in the world. We are hospitable to our guests and we make them feel safe and comfortable during their stay in the Philippines or in our country. So next, culture can be collaboration. Culture can be collaboration. States that collaboration doesn't just occur if someone happens to initiate it. Instead, it's baked into process of how people do their work every day and into the attitude they take about that work. Filipinos are known in doing bayanihan. We help people even though we can't or we don't have enough money, or time. We just always show our efforts to help other people for them to feel that somebody's or someone is there for them. So here is the very interesting facts about culture. Culture is derived from the Latin word cultura, which means growth and cultivation. That's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Nicole Fajardo from ED31 and I'm going to report about contrive collegiate. So let me define first the word contrive. So it means created or arranged in a way that seems artificial and unrealistic. Hargreaves 1994 identifies the primary five cultures of true collaboration that most teachers fit into when working with colleagues. Let us now discuss the meaning of contrived collegiality. So, contrived collegiality consists of administratively contrived interactions among teachers where they meet and work to implement the curricula and instructional strategies developed by others. The six features of contrived collegiality are identified. First, administratively regulated. Second, compulsory. Implementary oriented, fixed in space and time, and lastly, predictable. Instead of being initiated by teachers in a spontaneous manner, administrators create the opportunities through fixed time frames and scheduled planning and mentoring. Contrived collegiality is also a form of teacher culture in which the schools and external authorities impose their ideas to schools. As an example of contrived collegiality can be set of activities such as seminars, coaching, group works in which teachers are engaged. When put into action, contrived collegiality often plans out a teacher's preparation time, takes away often used to prepare items for their own classes, and forces mentoring, team teaching, or peer coaching. When these concepts are forced and planned out, there is a sense of predictability in the procedures and expectations, but a stifling of professional judgment and creativity. There is a lack of flexibility in creating and developing programs or curriculum since everything is pre-scheduled and the desired outcome has been determined. Unlike the concepts of true collaboration, where the outcomes are unpredictable. That's all. Thank you.